Kia ora te whānau. Ko Andrew Doubleday aho. Today we're looking at the Gospel text for Sunday the 6th of August 2023. It's Matthew chapter 14 verses 13 through to 21. It's an extremely well known story. In fact, it's in all four of the Gospels, which is actually quite rare. So we pick up the narrative at chapter 14 verse 13. Now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them and cured their sick. When it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away so they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Jesus said to them, "They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat." They replied, "We have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he said to them, "Bring them to me." So he ordered the crowd to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowd. And all ate and were filled. They took up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 baskets full. And those who sat were about 5,000 men, beside women and children. I want to invite you to take a drone's eye view. Imagine you're on a drone, a powerful drone with a camera that's lifted up over the Sea of Galilee and is able to see the whole sweep of the northern part of Galilee, right from the top of the lake, from Bethsaida around to Capernaum, right around past Gennesaret, around through and looking down into Galilee, over Nazareth, inland, and above it Sepphoris, which we'll talk about in a minute, and further down, and way down to the south, way down there is Jerusalem. But I want you just to imagine you're looking towards Nazareth, and you see these people start to move. People on the move, small groups, large groups, hundreds, thousands. And you notice that on the top of a hill above Nazareth is this large city. It doesn't appear in the New Testament anywhere, but it's historically a place. It's called Sepphoris. And it's the headquarters, it's a fortress city, it's the headquarters of Herod Antipas, Herod the Tetrarch. And it means basically the king of a quarter. So this is where he lives. He's basically building the city. It's perched on the top of this ridge looking out over Galilee. And underneath it is the little village of Nazareth. Now the last we've seen of Jesus, he's been actually in Nazareth. And he hears this news that John the Baptist has been executed. He's been brutalized. He's been beheaded. It's ugly and it's horrible. And so everybody's on the move. Everybody. Jesus takes his disciples, they get onto one of their fishing boats and they head out into the lake, and I suspect head north and around to head closer to home where they'd been, which is Capernaum. And they're looking for a place where they can just pull off to spend downtime, spend time alone, spend time perhaps licking their wounds, spend time grieving for the loss of John and the manner in which it was done. Because a number of Jesus' disciples had been disciples of John. And John had baptized Jesus. John had effectively launched Jesus' ministry. John was special to Jesus. He was the one who was often talking about Jesus, the one who was to come. And now Jesus recognized that he'd lost a friend. He'd lost someone who'd been hugely important in his life. But John also acted as a kind of buffer, because John was a bit of a hothead. And it allowed Jesus to just quietly get on with his ministry, where John drew some of the heat and the attention from the political leaders. And you can kind of picture it. And among these crowds of people would have been people who were baptized by John. This person in whom they had trusted, this person through whom baptism had changed their lives, who had listened to his teachings, who had sought to chart a new course. They were now left and bereft as John was gone. And so what do? They look to Jesus. They look to Jesus. He's the one that's left standing. They're now looking to him. And they're looking closely and they're following him. So you can imagine as you got up in the drone's eye view looking down, and you can see these tiny figures moving in groups, some in small family groups, others in 20s, 30s, 50s, hundreds, maybe even of 1,000, as these groups coalesce, and they're all tracking the progress of this boat on the lake. They're all watching where it's going. And as the word is spreading of the death of John the Baptist, other people are joining in. Other people are actually wanting to be part of this thing. And perhaps word is even spread a little bit further around the lake as people have run on ahead and told the news, the grim, awful news of the execution of John the Baptist. And they're all looking for something. They're all in a place of grief, a place of distress. They're looking for comfort. They're looking for hope. They're looking for a new source of light and life and strength. And they settle on Jesus. So you watch as this drone's eye view, you see these people all converging on this one spot as the boat pulls toward the shore. And as Jesus gets off at this lonely spot, hoping it to be a lonely spot, he's confronted with hundreds, thousands of people, and more people joining them by the moment as they come in to be with him. They're waiting for him. And they need words of grace, words of comfort, words of hope. Now that John is gone, they're now looking to Jesus. How is it for Jesus? Do you think he might have felt a sense of resentment that suddenly this great plan would have been destroyed by perhaps the biggest crowd that he'd ever had? No. It's said that when he sees the crowd, he has compassion for them. It's almost a sense that his heart breaks for them. The word that's used here is splanchnizomai. It is only ever used of Jesus or of God, or by Jesus to describe one of the characters like the father in the parable of the prodigal son. And it literally means his insides turned over inside of him. There's a deep, profound compassion, a deep wanting to reach out, a deep wanting to make it all right, to fix what's wrong, to offer healing and renewal and a fresh beginning. And I wonder that if as he's in this, he's almost wanting to cry out, "Come unto me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And he seeks to be a healing balm to those lost and distressed souls. There's no judgment here, no asking who is and who isn't worthy. All he sees is their need, and he seeks to respond with love, with compassion, with healing. And that's all that matters. It's also interesting to me that part of the package for him is that he refuses to allow any of them to go home hungry. They've expended a good deal of energy to get here. And he's not sending them out on their way without actually having their physical need of sustenance also attended to. How does he feed them all? And as I said, there could have been 10,000 people. It describes 5,000 men, plus women and children. I don't know. It's been suggested often that others brought their lunch and shared. They'd seen the small boy with his 5 loaves and 2 fish, and it was such a compelling example that they did the same thing. Well, that may be the case. Yet, it seems to me that it's not consistent with the sense of the text, that there's something dramatic and miraculous going on here. And it occurs to me that here's the one who can calm stormy seas. The one who not long afterwards is on a boat that's tossed by a storm, and he's able to bring it to complete peace. Here's one who has the energy of the universe at his back. So when faced with feeding a large crowd, a huge crowd, a ginormous crowd, and all he has is 5 loaves and 2 fish, yet they are a pattern of what's required. And Jesus, in some mysterious way, because he has the energy of the universe at his back, is able to replicate what he has. I understand that all matter is, when boiled down, simply complex patterns of energy. No matter how solid it might seem, it is totally solid. I've read that if all the space was taken out of matter in the universe, all the space taken out of all the matter in the universe, what we'd be left with was something smaller than a sugar cube. Just think about that. Everything that you see that seems so real, so firm, so hard, so imagined, is mainly space and energy. And if you take all the space out of all the matter in the universe, it would be that. What would be left would be that small, just a tiny speck. So I want to suggest that the one who can harness the energy of the universe can replicate 5 loaves and 2 fish with perhaps comparative ease. And maybe enough so that 10,000 people are fed and satisfied. And why? Because he wants them to know that he's in their corner, that they're not alone, that as they head back to their homes and back to their normal lives, he's capable of meeting all their needs. All they needed to do was turn up, which they have. Friends, Jesus hasn't changed. He continues to be able to meet our needs today. That same splanknizomai kind of compassion is extended to all of us. And it's not about being good enough. We just need to turn up, hands and hearts open. And the same one who has the energy of the universe at his back is able to meet us where we are. Amen. God bless you.